Okay, thanks everyone for joining today. I'm going to spend some time today talking about an investment opportunity that we have available in Topeka, Kansas. This presentation does contain forward-looking information. It's based on the facts that we've gathered to date, and we make no representation or warranties as to the accuracy or completeness of the facts that we've gathered to date. We are presenting details on illiquid investment opportunities in this presentation, and prospective investors should consult with financial professionals to determine if illiquid investments such as those presented in this presentation are appropriate for them. So what we'll be focusing on today is a 52-lot manufactured housing community in Topeka, Kansas called Caravan Community. We were able to source this opportunity off-market and are excited about what lies ahead in terms of value creation opportunities. We have an opportunity to acquire the property for about $700,000, and as I'll go into detail later on, are getting attractive seller financing and are really looking forward to increasing the value through lot rent increases, lot infill, and pushing utilities expense back on the residents. So I mentioned we have a total of 52 lots within this community. 13 of those 52 are occupied by resident-owned homes. The remaining 16 have park-owned homes that are currently occupied, and that leaves us with 23 vacancies that we plan to infill over the course of about 3 years. The utilities are all municipal utilities, but they are master metered, and those city water and city sewer expenses are currently borne by the community owner, which we do plan to sub-meter and bill back to residents. The third component, besides the infill and the bill backs that represent the value creation opportunity, are with the rents. So as we can see here, the current average rent within the community is $200 per month per lot, whereas we've seen the market right around $340. So we have a plan to gradually increase those lot rents to market, and it represents a pretty significant value creation opportunity. The Topeka market is strong. Topeka is the capital city of the state of Kansas, so there are, as one would suspect, significant government job presence in the MSA. These are the factors that we look at when evaluating markets, the metro area being above 100,000 in population, and we meet that by wide margin with 230,000. The unemployment rate is low and below the national average at 3.4%. We see the affordability gap, that median home price above $100,000, which suggests that there is strong demand for affordable housing within the metro. Similarly, we see the apartment rents, the 3-bedroom apartment rent above $1,000 per month. We don't see a lot of vacant housing, coming in at 10.4%, which is below the national average of about 13%. And we are just about across the street from the nearest Walmart Supercenter. This community is actually in quite an urban setting. We're about 4 miles north of downtown Topeka. So we're right near a major intersection where there's major retail, including the Supercenter. We listed the major employers here. Topeka we like because there's healthcare, state, and local government jobs. So those create quite a stabilizing effect on the local economy, and never gets quite too hot and never too dire in the area due to the nature of the employment base. So we've got a nice mix of the state of Kansas, large healthcare providers, but also some manufacturing and transportation, including the BNSF rail yard, which is one of the major rail yards in the country. So as I alluded to earlier, our value creation plan is anchored upon 3 core activities. First is the raising the rents to market. So we have about $140 per month gap between where the market is at $340 and where the average lot rent in the community is at $200. So we do plan to make some pretty significant increases, but over a long period of time. So we have $50 per month per year increases planned for years 1 through 3. Which will gradually get us to the $350. So by year 3, we should be about market, but at that time, we suspect that the market will increase. So we'll, over time, always be playing a little bit of catch-up to the market. With years 4 and 5, we'll just gradually increase by $10 per month. So we feel good about the ability to raise those rents to market just given the significance of the gap, and have a fairly conservative plan of getting there over a long period of time. For filling the vacant lots, it represents about a $350,000 opportunity to add value to the community. We do plan to bring in used homes and also work with 21st Mortgage cash program to bring in new homes and either sell them or rent them to prospective residents. We have a fairly conservative plan in bringing in one home every other month. So by about year 3.5, we expect to fill all 23 vacant lots. We believe we can execute faster just given the strength in the market that we've seen, and also based on historical experience of filling vacancies. But from a projection standpoint, we're assuming that it's going to take a long time. And then lastly, the billing back of the water and sewer expenses. Currently, residents are incurring or generating expenses of about $100 per month for water and sewer. We plan to install the sub-meters that the owner has already purchased, and then we'll immediately start passing along those expenses to residents. So we estimate, just based on our view of the historical bills that we've obtained from the utility providers, that it will result in an increase of about $90 per month in expense to our residents. So those are the three anchor points that we've anchored our value creation plan upon, and have set forth fairly conservative timelines for achieving the value drivers that we've outlined here. We do have a purchase price of $700,000 that we have negotiated with the seller. As we go through due diligence and continue to find items, that may change a bit, but from today's vantage point, $700,000 is the purchase price. We have been able to negotiate a seller note of $400,000, so a little over half of the acquisition will be financed by the seller at terms that are very attractive. So we've negotiated a 30-year amortization, 5% fixed interest for 7 years. And we feel very good about that note, and it will allow us to execute the plan and withstand some fairly bumpy roads if we encounter them as we execute our business plan. We will be needing about $100,000 in CapEx, primarily to facilitate the infill. So that's either for movement of used homes or rehab of used homes that we acquire and bring in, or expenses related to infills. We work with a financier such as 21st Mortgage. We've got a bit of a reserve, an operating reserve for unexpected items, and we'll also use some of that CapEx to fund fencing and signage and general community beautification throughout. As I mentioned before, we are planning to drive lot infill of about 6 homes per year, so that's 1 home every other month, which will get us to full by about midway through year 3. To correspond to that, we are planning $50 per month per year increases from years 1 through 3 for the lot rents, and then $10 per month per year thereafter. The home rent, so we do have about, when it's full, it will be about 1/3 of the community will be occupied by park-owned homes, and the home rents on those park-owned homes, we plan to move in lockstep with the rent increases for lots. We do see a substantial gap, as we'll go into a bit later here, between the home rent and that which we see in the market. So similar to our plan to conservatively grow the lot rent over time to slightly trail market, we're planning to do the same thing with the park-owned home rents. You can see in the percentage margin, which is the inverse of the operating expense, that we plan to have about a 60% operating expense in years 1, and that will slowly burn down over time to about 40% operating expense ratio as we get into years 4. We think that's fairly conservative coming out of the gate. Based on our review of the owner's financials, they've been running the park right around 50% operating expense ratio. So we're assuming a little bit worse out of the gate, and then it will trend down over time to 40% operating expense ratio as we institute the buildbacks and increase the occupancy of the park. So with those main assumptions, we're generating fairly healthy returns as we get into year 3 through 5. You will notice that we have 0 cash distributions in years 1 and 2. That is because we will be supplementing our $100,000 of CapEx with cash flow from the operations to facilitate the lot infill program. So 23 lots is a large number, and we'd like to reinvest those funds that we generate through operating cash flow back into the operation so that we can quickly fill the homes and start generating returns in year 3 through 5. I mentioned earlier the detail on the rent comp analysis. This slide here shows the detail on those parks in the vicinity. So we focused on performing a rent comp analysis on parks that are within a 10-mile radius of Caravan. And what we found was that for lot rents, we found the average lot rent right around $340 per month. That's in contrast to Caravan, which is currently at $200. So over time, we plan to slowly close that gap over the span of about 3 years so that we get just under market. Similarly, with the park-owned home rents, you can see here, average is right around $425 to $600, depending upon the size and the age of the home. Our park-owned homes are right around just under $400 per month. So we plan to, as we bring in new homes, increase that average, and then as we rehab some of the older homes, we would plan to boost that up as well. Regarding utilities, there's a mix. There are some communities that include utilities within their lot rents, and there are others that don't. And we feel fairly confident that with the planned rent increases, that by also including the increase in utilities, by pushing the utilities expense to residents, that will still remain competitive within the market. So from an investment standpoint, for our external capital partners, we are seeking a total of about $400,000. So that would close the gap between the $400,000 loan that we're obtaining from the seller and the $100,000 working capital and operating expense fund. The remaining gap gets us to about $400,000 to acquire the property. So if you were to invest $50,000 or $100,000, this slide outlines the returns. As I mentioned earlier, years 1 and 2 will not drive any capital distribution or cash distribution. The preferred return that we'll talk about a little bit later will be accruing during this period and will be paid back as there is excess capital in years 3 and beyond to distribute, but the first 2 years won't be generating any cash distributions. So whereas that may not seem so attractive in the beginning, later on is really where the attractiveness comes into play. You can see from both a cash-on-cash perspective and a return of capital in year 5 that things become awfully attractive. This is typical for value-add projects, especially significant value-add projects, where it's going to take a bit of capital investment up front in order to generate meaningful returns. So for us, that's what we're projecting, is significant cash out distributions in year 3 through 5, and through a refinance of the property to get about a 70% loan-to-value loan, we plan to return all capital that was initially invested at the acquisition, plus a little bit of excess, and then what would be left beyond that is a cash-flowing asset that doesn't have any initial invested capital remaining in it. And we like those types of scenarios very much and want to accumulate as many of those as we can. We are near or closing with the Caravan community. We have about 3 to 4 weeks remaining between where we are today in early September and the anticipated closing. We have performed due diligence and are anticipating an on-site trip here very shortly. In terms of what we have completed, we have confirmed through the city records that the park is of legal non-conforming status, i.e. it's grandfathered in. So as long as we honor the zoning requirements and the offsets that were put in place at the time that the park was originally approved, we are okay to proceed and operate the park as needed. We are seeking written acceptance from city officials just as a additional assurance to make sure that we won't have any problems moving in new homes or replacing some of the older homes with newer models. Regarding the environmental study, we have ordered the study and the desktop review has been completed with nothing coming back of concern. But we do plan to see the full study before closing. But preliminary results suggest that there's nothing of concern. We have run test ads and are pleased with the results that have come in through Craigslist and Facebook. In addition to seeing the demographics being strong and the market statistics suggesting that there is demand, the actual demand has proven out through our test ads, and that's something that we always like to see, especially in a project that involves significant infill. We have some remaining items to verify in diligence, both from a financial perspective. We've seen a draft rent roll. This particular owner has not kept very clean records, and so we've had to work with the owner to shore up some holes and provide sufficient detail that we're comfortable with. We have seen a rent roll that is closer to what we'd expect, and we'll continue to work through getting a P&L just so that we can get a reasonable idea of what the property has operated at in terms of expenses and income over the past couple of years. For the infrastructure, we have talked to and met with the municipal utility providers for water and sewer and have taken a look at the utility bills to gauge the bill back magnitude to residents. We do plan to have an inspection completed of the pipes. We do know that there is clay tile for the pipes, and that at sometimes can be problematic with tree roots coming through or various leaks throughout. And so we do plan to have those scoped to get a better sense of the quality of the infrastructure. And then lastly, we'll get a view of our park-owned home inventory. There are quite a few park-owned homes in the high teens, and we plan to walk each of those and get a sense for the condition and potential capital required to rehab them if needed. So what we're looking for in partners here is an active set of partners that will be able to contribute capital. We are offering a 7% preferred return. So even in years 1 and 2, where we don't anticipate making any capital distributions to partners, that preferred return will accrue. And it will accrue until we're caught up. So in year 3, even though we won't cover the entire accrual, by year 4 we will, and then each year thereafter we plan to pay the preferred until the initial capital is paid back. We are anticipating returning all of the initial capital invested in the deal by year 5 during that refinance event, at which point after that 60% would be returned, of all distributions would be returned to capital partners, and 40% would be distributed to upward communities. We're seeking a $50,000 minimum investment, and as I mentioned, we're looking for JV partners. We've found some success in new park owners that want to partner alongside more experienced operators. We welcome those, and we're open to dividing up active roles based on interests and where our partners would like to spend their time or where they may bring particular strong skills that could help us achieve our business plan. Upward Communities' role, our role will be to oversee property management and asset manage the property and execute the business plan. So we will be doing the day-to-day direction of the on-site managers, facilitating all of the operational components of executing this value creation plan, and in addition doing the reporting, tax, and communication with our partners to ensure this project is a success. For that, we are seeking 40% of capital distributions prior to the preferred, and then once all initial capital is returned, we would split distributions 40-60, 40% to upward, 60% to our capital partners. We are charging a property management fee and an asset management fee that we'll collect as part of Upward, because we will be driving the day-to-day. and we are seeking an acquisition fee and a loan guarantee fee. We have some costs to recoup as part of our acquisition and diligence process, and we also are pursuing a recourse loan for the seller finance note. So for that, we will be seeking $2,000 in compensation. That summarizes the opportunity that's available in Topeka. We do have several other that are in our pipeline that will be closing by this fall. So I talked a little bit about the one at the top of the list here in Topeka. That's the one likely to close the soonest. We also have one under contract in Milner, which is just outside of Atlanta, between Atlanta and Macon, Georgia. That's a 49 space on city water and private septic that we were able to get under contract for $600,000. That is also available. I just recorded a webcast about last week, and we're seeking active partners in a similar type of term structure as what I just described. Similarly, we've got a park in Warrensburg, Missouri, which is not too far from Topeka, Kansas, and would really complement our property there in Topeka as we build a presence in that area. That's a large park. It's about 100 spaces. We've got under contract for $1.6 million. It's all municipal utilities, and that is a pretty significant infill opportunity. So while total lots are about 100, current occupied are just shy of 60. So similar to Topeka, we'll have a large infill project on our hands there. And then the last one that's in late stage in our pipeline is in the Tulsa MSA, and that's about a 40-space park that we've got under contract for $665,000. So I welcome inquiries from others on any of these projects. Topeka is the one that we're seeking capital for soonest, in that it's going to be closing here in short order. But are willing to be flexible in terms of what our capital partners are looking to do, what they're looking to learn, and the type of support that they're seeking from a joint venture partner. I welcome any inquiries that you may have. If these opportunities don't seem right for you based on geographic location or specific areas of interest, we are actively seeking other communities across the southeast, southwest, and really anywhere in the middle of the country besides the West Coast and the Northeast. So we welcome partnership opportunities. I'm happy to jump on the phone and talk through Topeka or any of our other pipeline opportunities in more detail, and welcome an opportunity to open up a conversation. Appreciate the time today, and look forward to hearing from you soon.